I'm glad you're here. I was worried. Oh, I already lost somebody. Oh, well. My name's Nancy Cooper, and I'm from the Chippewas of Rama First Nation, which is just near Orillia, Ontario. Um, I want to start off by acknowledging our beautiful creation of Mother Earth, who gave us this beautiful day and all the gifts that come with this day. And to every day, I always try and remind myself of the responsibilities that I have as a human being. And I urge you to do the same in your own way, so that we can continue having the gifts that she keeps giving us. I coordinate the First Nation Communities Read Book program. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with that, it's an annual book award that celebrates the very best in Indigenous literature here in Canada. It started in 2003, and it's one of the oldest Indigenous literature awards, and perhaps now one of the richest, which I'm really happy to tell you. It was started by First Nation librarians, and librarians are still involved. There are 46 First Nation public libraries in the province, and I am the very lucky person who gets to work with each of them. As a consultant, but also helping to administer this award. So each year, we celebrate in two categories, the children's category and the young adult category. And today, I'm just going to do a book talk with you about the nominated children's titles, of which there are about 25. I know myself, when I go to a bookstore and I see books that look good, but I don't really know what they're about. Should I buy it? Is it an Indigenous author? Will the kids in my school, will the kids in my library like it? That kind of thing. So it's my job to make sure that I curate a list that librarians and teachers alike, and interested public community members can take home, or take to the library, or take to the bookstore, or go online, and know that they are purchasing books that are created by Indigenous people, that are supported and celebrated by both Indigenous and mainstream publishers. Usually at Word on the Street, we celebrate our selected title authors, but this year we've switched our award to take place in October during First Nations Public Library Week. So if you want to get information about First Nation Public Library Week, or more information about First Nation Communities Read, you can go to FNCR.ca. I have some of my cards here that I can share with you later if you'd like to get in touch. I always love talking about Indigenous books, as everybody in my friends list will tell you. Okay, so I'm just going to go through our nominated titles. This year we were lucky enough to have about 25 children's titles nominated. Our nomination process involves having books that were published the year prior. So all these books I'm going to talk to you about were published in 2021. In our young adult category, we had over 50 titles nominated. And so that really speaks to the growing number of Indigenous people being published, but it also speaks to the important role that publishing houses are taking in making sure that diverse voices are being heard. So hats off to the publishing companies. Hi. Hi, Paper Bag Princess. Do I want tattoos? Okay, sure. Yeah. Thanks. Yay. Got one. Okay. Let's get started. Before I get started, do you have any questions about Indigenous literature that are like burning to be asked right this second? No? Okay. Just wanted to check to make sure. All right. So there's this really cool group of librarians called the Dewey Divas, and they do amazing book talks. If you ever want to look them up on YouTube, the Dewey Divas and the Dewey Dudes, I think they're called. And they get all kinds of books from publishers, and they read them, and then they let you know what the book's about so you can make your choices. So just think of me as the Indigenous Dewey Diva today. All right, we'll get started. A is for anemone. And this is a beautiful board book. Being a mom myself, I know these are very chewable in little one's hands, so that's kind of cool. And as usual, Roy Henry Vickers and Robert Budd have collaborated on another beautifully colored, beautifully illustrated book about life on the West Coast. It's a first West Coast alphabet. The B. For those of you who don't know, Inhabit Media is an amazing Inuit publishing company based out of Iqaluit, and they have offices, I believe, here in Toronto. And they publish so many amazing children's books that are written by Inuit creators. And this is one of them called The Bee, and it's by Becky Han. And this little bee chases this girl all over the place. She is running clear across Nunavut to get away from this bee until she realizes that the bee is actually not going to hurt her, and the bee is quite friendly. So I highly recommend Inhabit Media. One of the really great things about the First Nation Communities Read Book Award is that our official wholesaler is goodminds.com, and they are based out of the Six Nations community, the Six Nations of the Grand River. And if you go to goodminds.com, you will see every kind of Indigenous book you'd ever want to imagine in the whole wide world. They're really, really great at maintaining a wonderful book list. And because they're our official wholesaler, if you are a teacher or a librarian, you can purchase whole sets. So if you, after today, you thought, I have to get every single one of these books, how do I do it, Nancy? You can go to goodminds.com, follow the links, and you can buy the whole package. It's really well discounted, and I believe free shipping. So consider Good Minds for any of your purchasing of Indigenous books. This is what I've been told, and it's written and illustrated by Juliana Armstrong. You'll see it's in Anishinaabemowin, and it is also a dual language book. So it's full of teachings about the beauty of the Anishinaabe culture, but it also is a history of residential schools, survival, and resilience, along with some really, really beautiful art. I'll show you next. So you can see that woodland style right there. I have to work on my game of mic and book, but there's a heron, beautiful heron. So they talk about the clans, the different clans, and what the clans mean, too. So this is a really good kind of primer on Anishinaabe culture. This book is so beautiful, and it is actually published by an arm of goodminds.com called the Indigenous Education Press. So they've decided to take on some of their own publications. And this is all about a little bear who goes into foster care. So he's learning about having to be away from his family of origin with a loving foster family. And I'm not really sure if anybody knows this, but unfortunately, there are more Indigenous children in care today than there ever were in residential schools. So it is a real issue in First Nation communities for our children to be away from their families. So this is a very, very timely and amazing book, Little Bear and Foster Care. And it's Joseph Lyons is the Algonquin author who wrote this. Just shout out if you have any questions. This is another Inhabit. You're going to see a lot of Inhabit Media titles, which I'm really excited about. So this is Little More. The moon worries more a bit. Not quite sure about the moon. As the days become shorter and the moon, which Moore thinks has a creepy face and an eerie smile, seems to be looking down on him. So we all know that people living in the Arctic have really, really shorter days and longer times in the dark. So Moore is having an adventure with trying to figure out, how do I come to terms with the moon in my life? We're talking all about kids' books. Sarah and Robert Davidson. Robert Davidson is a very, very well-known Haida carver from Haida Gwaii, also known as the Queen Charlotte Islands in British Columbia. And this is called Jigging for Halibut with Chennai. Chennai is grandpa in the Haida language. And spending time with your relatives is such an important factor in so many of our Indigenous communities that Sarah and her dad decided to write a story about how important it was for that intergenerational knowledge translation. And jigging is a lot of fun. I've done it. I caught a red snapper one time when I was on Haida Gwaii. So Robert is a world-renowned carver, so you'll probably see some really great carvings and art of his in the book. It has this dreamy oil painting look to it, which I really love, and it does really remind me of the times I've spent on Haida Gwaii where it's been foggy and cloudy. We learn a lot about the halibut and how important they are to the Haida during the reading of this book. I'd highly recommend it. And it is published by Highwater Press, which I'm a bit of a publisher nerd, so I'm going to give you some trivia. Portage in Maine is a publisher in Winnipeg, and they have an imprint called Highwater Press, and Highwater publishes Indigenous voices. So that's another thing you can Google if you want to look for some really great Indigenous voices. This is called Louis Realde, the Fur Trade Project. So this little guy, this is from Thetis Books. They're a publishing company out of Penticton, another Indigenous publishing company. And this is called Louis Realde, the Fur Trade Project. And when this little guy has to write a project about Louis Riel, some magic happens. And somebody comes and shows up and helps with the project. History is about people who stood by their belief, who didn't act for glory, knowing conflict ends in grief. So it's a lovely story about a guy and his grandpa, and of course, the very famous Louis Riel. This is another book from Thetis Books, and it is in the language of the Syilx people. So there's quite a few Syilx words. And this is called The Water Sings to Suli. And it's a story about the importance of water, not only for us to drink, but for everything on Earth to survive. Suli meets a magic water child, and all kinds of adventures happen. Suli and the magic water child have an important message to share with the world. And I see some people writing, don't need to worry about writing down the titles. You can just email me and I'll send you the whole list. So don't worry, got my card. Okay, mi manda ejke ke gnamana ke kendaman. There we go. My grandmother's just kind of up there going, oh, well, she tried. This is How I Know by Brittany Luby, and it's illustrated by the very, very talented Joshua Mangashig Powis-Steckley. And it is published by Groundwood Books, and you would have probably seen this book at the Groundwood table if you were walking by it. Joshua's illustrations are quite stunning. Again, it's a dual language book, And it talks about the beauty of creation and the lessons that we can learn from creation. And just a little secret tidbit that I'll share with you. I have a children's book coming out in the spring, and Joshua is the illustrator. So keep an eye out for it. It's called Bindigan. Amik says welcome. And here we have another one from Sarah and her dad. And this is called Learning to Carve Argillite. Another book from Highwater Press. And for those of you who might not be aware, argillite can only be found on the islands of Haida Gwaii. And it's this beautiful, beautiful, rich black stone that a lot of the carving is done with. So this is a little book about learning to carve argillite. It's quite a very, very hard stone, but it polishes up beautifully. And again, illustrations are just beautiful oil painting, going into some of the teachings about the different clans and the meanings behind the carvings. It's part of a series called Ska'ada Stories. And who doesn't love David Robertson? He is very prolific. He's got 5 kids. I don't know how he's finding the time to do all the writing he does, but good on him. I'm going to have to ask him one day. This is called On the Trap Line, and it's illustrated by the amazing Métis artist Julie Flett. This is a story about a little boy who goes with his grandpa for one last time to the grandpa's trap line that he grew up on. If you happen to like reading memoirs, you can pick up Blackwater, David Robertson's memoir about his time with his dad and going back onto the trap line for the last time. It's really quite a beautiful and poignant story. So the grandpa is showing the trap line to the grandson in this book, and it's a very, very beautiful book. Tundra Books has published this one. Hockey with Dad by Willie Sellers. And this is from Caitlin Press. Now, this is Willie's second book with this publishing company, and the other one was called Dip Netting with Dad. So it's all about activities that we do with Dad. And it's really, really funny. I think even Granny or Grandpa get involved too. But hockey's a huge deal in a lot of Indigenous communities, so it's a really, it shows the importance of family in the book, and a little bit of sibling rivalry too. I have 14-year-old twins. I know nothing about sibling rivalry. Nothing at all. Okay, here is another Inhabit Media book. It's called The Shaman's Apprentice. And it's written by Zachary Kunick and illustrated by Megan Kyer Monteith. I can't recommend this enough. It's a very, very beautiful book. It is inspired by the short film of the same name. So it's a little bit scary. A lot of Inuit stories are a little bit scary, which is kind of cool. And I know my twins, when they were little, they liked a little bit scary when they were having bedtime stories. So yeah, beautiful, beautifully illustrated book about an apprentice to a shaman. So all of these books are, from baby to about grade 4. And then we start getting into the YA and adult books in our other category. This is part of the Mothers of Zan series by Brett Hewson, published by Highwater Press. And this is the Wolf Mother. I have another one here, but he's done the Grizzly Mother, the Salmon Mother, he's done the Eagle Mother, the Wolf Mother, and he's also has the Frog Mother coming out. So it's not only about how these particular animals or creatures are born and live in their own communities. It's how they fit into the ecosystem of the land where Brett is from and the importance they have to the people that Brett belongs to. Really lovely illustrations and all full of tons of facts, which I love. And sweaty. Oh, look at those dogs with the little feet. Shoes. So cute. Here's another Brett Houston one, the frog mother. Did you know they breathe through their skin? I feel so bad for all those years I caught frogs and kept them and held them and suffocating them the whole time. So this is another story from Brett, all about the importance of frogs in his community, not only for his community, but for the whole ecosystem. So I'd highly recommend this series if you're buying for a classroom, because it's full of really good scientific knowledge, also a lot of traditional knowledge infused in it. Hi, Maya. Hey, everybody, there's Maya. She's one of the main organizers. She may have had 3 hours sleep this whole weekend. Another Inhabit Media title. See, I told you. They're so great. So this is called The Dancing Trees by Masiana Kelly, and it's illustrated by Michelle Simpson. Thomas loves to tell stories about how skilled he is on the land and how amazing he is. Big, big stories. But when one of his friends calls him on it, he has to prove how skilled he really is. So he's got to go into the forest and spend a night alone by himself. I wonder what's going to happen when he comes home. So he's got to come to terms with what happens when you get called out on telling your big stories. And what will he learn? And who will help him during the night? One of my children I'm also a storyteller. How can you tell? Blah, blah, blah. Nancy. One of my children is going for his first fast in October. So he'll be going out for 24 hours all by himself. And we're really excited about it. Then he will be a man. Very proud of him. This is a Mick. And it's by Sharon King. And it's published by Kegadance Press, which is up at Cape Croker First Nation. I had the great fortune to be able to interview Sharon yesterday, and she did the artwork for this book as well. So it's tissue paper and paint on watercolor paper. And it's a dual language book, another board book for those children who like to chew on things, or baby beavers, I don't know. Yeah, so it has the Anishinaabe on the top, and then the English here. And when I spoke with Sharon yesterday, she talked about the importance of having the language right from the very start for our children. So, you might not be able to understand a whole lot of it right at first, but it will sink in eventually. Mick is very industrious in this book, busy building a dam while the world moves around him. One thing that Sharon told me yesterday, and I did know this, but not a lot of people in the audience knew, is a Mick isn't just a direct translation to beaver. It means, in Anishinaabe, a being who keeps very busy, which obviously beavers do. This is part of the Animals Illustrated series from Inhabit Media. They should be here this year. They should have had a table. I'm going to talk to them. No, they're not. Probably a lot of their books are at different tables, but they didn't specifically have a table here. So this is really, really a wonderful series. They've done several different Arctic animals, and this one's about Wolverine, one of my very favorite animals. So it has a lot of scientific facts, knowledge, as well as traditional knowledge about how Wolverine was in the world, how Wolverine is in the world, how they're endangered, those types of things. In this book, kids will learn how wolverines raise their babies, where they live, what they eat, and other interesting information, like how they use their distinctive scent and how they've adapted to become excellent scavengers. My mom once told me a story about her uncle who had a trap line, and he had all his traps set over somewhere before he was going to get going on his trap line that year, and a wolverine went and sprayed its scent all over the traps, and he had to throw them all out because there was no way he would be able to clean the scent of the wolverine off the traps because the animals would go nowhere near the traps. So those wolverines stink, basically, is what I'm saying. But they're very smart. So a little while ago, I mentioned the illustrations of Julie Flett in David's book. This is her book, We All Play. And it has the Cree word for we all play, which I am not going to attempt. So she authored and illustrated this. And it's quite beautiful. We all love Julie's artwork. And it is, again, another dual language book, which is really wonderful. You might be in a school board that offers Indigenous languages, be it Cree or Anishinaabemowin. So if you're picking up books for your library, I'd highly recommend this one. And this is published by Greystone Kids. Okay. Little Wolf, Heritage Books. Little Wolf is written by Tioni Spalfeather and illustrated by Natasha Davies. And it's based in Vancouver. And a woman has moved to the city, a girl has moved to the city with her mom and sister, and she has a hard time adjusting to the new life. So she finds things like the moon and other things that she can remember are still the same from home. I had an elder one time give me a teaching about that, and he said, you know, a red-tailed hawk is always a red-tailed hawk. It doesn't matter where the red-tailed hawk is, be it out on the bush or right here on the top of the building that you live on. And that's a really, really important lesson for us urban Indigenous people to remember that no matter where we are on this earth, we will always be Indigenous. And this is what Little Wolf finds out in this book. Tioni's had a busy year. She also published White Raven. And this is the story of White Raven, Little Wolf's grandmother, who was taken to residential school. And she tells a little bit of her story to her grandchildren. Heritage House has also published this book. Oh no, we're coming to the end of our pile. I'd be here for about 3 hours if I had brought all my adult books too. Thunder and the Noise Storms. You're going to recognize that artwork. It's Joshua Mangashig Powis Steckley's artwork as well. He has had a very busy year. So Thunder and the Noise Storms, words by Jeffrey Anslus and Sheza Anslus, mother and son. Jeffrey teaches at York University, but he's also now a children's book author. And this is published by Anik Press. This is a really wonderful book for those kids who are often overwhelmed by noises and colors and all kinds of stuff swirling around them. They just get overwhelmed. So Thunder gets overwhelmed one day, and Grandpa has to come and take him from school. And they go for a walk, and Grandpa says, listen to the noises of the earth around you. Listen to the wind through the grass. Listen to how the rain hits the tree leaves. Listen to all of the things that creation has given us. And before you know it, Thunder has calmed right down. Thunder has let go of the experiences that he had a bit earlier. So it's a book about learning how to calm oneself, but it's also an amazing book about how important our elders are to remind us of our place in creation. Anik Press. What happens if you have a dream and all of the buffalo that went to live in the sky come back down to earth? This is a little book about Declan, and ever since he was born, his cookum had shared stories with him about the bison and how important they were to the Cree people. But Declan had never seen a real one. So one night he falls asleep and all the buffalo that had moved on to other places in the world come to him in his dream time. So it's really, really a beautiful book. And it's written by Deirdre Haverlock, and the pictures are by Asby Whitecalf. I'll give you a sample of one of them. So the buffalo are all over the place. And it just has this really beautiful, dreamy illustrations to it. And they come down from the sky. So there you have it. You have had the sneak peek at all of the nominated titles for the children's category for First Nation Communities Read. And I wondered if anybody had any questions or comments? Oh, I said it all? That's awesome. That's so great. Oh, do you have a question? Yay.
We kind of just joined, so we kind of missed all of it except a bit. So I kind of had questions a bit is when you began.
Or where we can look them up here. Is there somewhere where we can find the list?
Oh, yes, there is. I'm so glad that you asked that. Thank you. So if you come over here and you grab my card and you give it to your mom or dad, they can email me and I'll send them the list of all the books. Okay? Oh, you're welcome. Miigwech for asking. Okay, well, I want to thank everybody. I really appreciate you spending time with me here today. I love talking about books. So if you are part of a book club or a library or friends of a library or, I don't know, community center, whatever, I can come to you. I can talk about Indigenous books all day long. Until you throw me out, I'll just keep talking. So, miigwech, everybody, for your time. Please join me back here at this stage at 4 p.m. I'll be hosting the Lee Miracle Storming the Stage event. Thank you.